Pedro's Journal, January 2nd. Now there are 40 of us crowded on board the Nina, with 22 of their crew, not counting the natives the captain has taken aboard. How strange the natives must think we are, these pale men from heaven who crammed themselves in wooden tubs to float for all eternity on the sea. Even I think they are crazy, these men who are so obsessed with gold they have forgotten all about their families and their lives. There is a solution to all this overcrowding, though. We are leaving a settlement here, on a beach within sight of the wrecked Santa Maria. The settlement's name will be La Navidad, which shames me and causes me to blush every time I hear it. The native chief has helped us salvage all we could from the wreck, wood and tools to build with, stores of food and other provisions. And the captain has ordered the 39 men who volunteered to stay to build a fortress and a tower so that Spain will have a place to come back to on future voyages. Columbus is prepared to go home to Spain now with the certainty that there is gold here and that once a Spanish settlement has been established, our explorations will be more effective. As I write, the Lombards are shooting at the Santa Maria to sink what is left of her above the water and impress the natives with our warrior skills and our might. Me? I will be glad when I am no longer haunted by the grim stare of the broken Santa Maria off the beach, when I can leave her behind. January 8th. After some delay, we are finally under sail through the islands, following the chief's directions to gold, which we intend to check before we leave. Hours before we set sail, we heard a rumor from a native that the Pinta, the renegade traitor, had been seen anchored in a river. Then yesterday at noon, with a fine wind pushing us on, Columbus sent a man up the mast to search for deep spots and shoals, but instead he spotted the Pinta sailing directly towards us. We were soon anchored alongside each other, and Captain Martin Alonso came aboard. Martin Alonso was full of excuses and pardons, saying he had left Columbus against his will, but, as Diego said, the air was so thick with distrust and rage that he could have sliced it with a dagger. Martin Alonso has always been too independent and too bent on his own fame to please Columbus. And Columbus has always been too driven and powerful to give Martin Alonso any room. They bragged to each other about all the gold they had found, but the captain made it clear he was once again in charge and they would now return together to Spain. In his log, he says he will endure this treachery in silence, glad to have a companionship with which to make the homeward passage. January 9th. The captain tries to favor me again, to bring me back into his circle of those he thinks are his admirers and supporters. The truth is that they are all fakes and liars, smiling and bowing before him, while ridiculing and criticizing him behind his back. Yesterday, to prove that all is forgiven concerning the sinking of the Santa Maria, he invited me to join him when we anchored off Monte Cristi. With a few men, we rowed ashore to explore the Rio del Oro. The men had said that when they lowered their water barrels into the river here and then pulled them up, pieces of gold the size of lentils clung to the hoops of the barrels. Columbus said he wished to see this for himself before we depart, so that he could mark the spot clearly on his chart. But we saw something to me that was even more wondrous than gold. I went along reluctantly, unwilling to grovel before the captain, willing only to keep to my stony silence. He tried to draw me out, pointing out the large tortoises with shells like wooden shields, and then the men stopped rowing. Everyone was silent. The only motion was our silent drift and the captain's finger tapping in the direction of 3 mermaids rising up out of the water. Not lovely mermaids, mind you, with flowing hair and pearls and seaweed about their slender necks, but mermaids as brawny and ugly as innkeepers' mothers, with skin as gray as slate, and with grotesque webbed hands at the ends of their bent arms. Mermaids, I whispered hoarsely to the captain, turning in wonder to lock eyes with him. He smiled at me and shook his head. Manatees, he corrected. I have seen them before, off the coast of Africa. The men began to row again, and the manatees acted as though they hadn't seen us at all. Francisco put his back into the oars and sighed. Reminds me of my wife, he said. We all laughed, and the others teased him, saying, she must be quite a cook to keep you coming back. And she keeps the bed warm as well for my icy feet. I can't remember the last time any of us laughed, but we did today, beneath the hot tropical sun, with water pouring like diamonds off the slow and steady oars. Even the captain laughed. Even me. January 16th. We have left almost all our provisions with the men at La Navidad, planning to make some stops before heading out to sea. We've traded for fruit and breads and gathered anything else that might sustain us on the trip home. On the whole, the natives grew less and less friendly as we met them. Maybe word spread before us. On one of the last days, some of our men went ashore and were greeted by natives with bows and arrows. These natives were different from any others we had met before. They were possibly the Caribs, who we'd been warned eat whomever they capture. They were ugly men. Their faces were smeared with charcoal, and their long hair was drawn back and gathered in clusters of parrot feathers. Besides bows and arrows, they carried clubs. Besides trading, they wished to capture our sailors. At first, our men were able to get them to lay down their weapons in order to trade, but soon they had taken them to hand again and came at our men with cords to tie them up. Of course, our men were prepared at the captain's orders, and even though there were only 7 sailors and more than 50 natives, our weapons proved more powerful. They reported that one native was sliced across the buttocks, another on the chest. Our men were visibly shaken, not used to being challenged this way. The captain was at first troubled, and then he said, well, maybe this is good. They will know to be afraid of us, and if an envoy from La Navidad comes here, our people will be safe. I don't know how safe the captain really feels, however. Both the Nina and Pinta are leaking terribly, and he is not willing to risk another skirmish with the natives by beaching our ships and repairing them now. So our 2 ships are well stocked, but leaking, as we head out at last to sea and to Spain. We begin a new journey in a new direction, and not counting my one disaster of judgment and inexperience, I think, to spite them all, I am becoming a seasoned sailor. I look forward to the huge swells and pulse of the open sea, where no islands beckon with false promises of gold and treasure. I yearn for a sweep of unbroken horizon and a depth of endless fathoms. It is just the parrots and the terrible mess they make that I hate. January 28th. Table, table, Sir Captain and Master and good company. Table ready, meat ready. Water as usual for Sir Captain and Master and good company. Long live the King of Castile by land and sea. Who says to him war, off with his head. Who won't say amen, gets nothing to drink. Table is set. Who don't come won't eat. How wonderful this feels to be heading home. We almost made one extra stop. One of the natives on board told the captain of an island on our way where only women live, where it is believed men come only part of the year and then are kicked out, along with boy children who are old enough to leave their mothers. It is not the women the captain was interested in, but the fact that this may be the island Marco Polo wrote about in his voyage to the Orient. And this would be the proof Columbus needs to show we did indeed make the Indies. He even turned in this direction for 2 leagues, but when he saw how disappointed the men were, how even the thought of an island full of women did not distract them from their desire to go home, or their uneasiness about the leaking boats, he turned back towards our homeland, and now the ships roll before the winds that grow cooler and cooler with each passing day.